There's a saying that I like to live by. Everything happens for a reason. Quite a few years ago, there was someone that I knew that tried to challenge this saying, and the results ended up being pretty amusing. Before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to ErkDiz. I hope I'm saying your Twitter name correctly. He's the one who drew the awesome fan art that you saw in the intro. If you have any fan art or fan creations that you would like me to show in one of my upcoming videos, hit me up on Twitter. I'll leave my Twitter handle in the description below and at the end of the video. I can't wait to see how you guys will dive into imagination. Like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I am an avid card game player. If you can show me a card game, I'll check it out and I'll fall in love with it. I don't know why, but it's just a big thing with me. One of those card games that I really dived into back in the day was Yu-Gi-Oh! I still play it now, but not as much as I used to. As a matter of fact, I've just started coming back to it, and I'll be honest, I'm not too fond of the current state of the game. I mean, there's a lot of mess going on, but it's still not enough for me to hate the game. But quite a few years back, this was around the time that I was just getting out of being homeless, I used to go down to the library and duel with people. I guess you could call it the locals, as many card game players label it as. And I used to have fun with dueling all these people and whatnot. But I had a particular friend, quote unquote friend, named K. That's what we're gonna call him for short. And just to put this into proper perspective, he was around 4 to 5 years older than me. So if I was 24, he'd be around the age of 28, basically the age that I'm at now. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're an older person and you like to play card games, more power to you. I don't really find there to be an age limit in terms of playing video games or playing whatever you want to play, or liking whatever you like. As long as you're not harming anybody else or being destructive about it, then, like I said, more power to you. I mean, I still play card games now, so... But anyway, I'm literally not exaggerating when I say that me and Kay were the best duelists in that area. We had a lot of good opponents, don't get me wrong, a lot of them were really good. But when it came down to like the top two, it was me or him. We knew the rules, we knew what type of decks to play, and for those who may be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now and want to know around what time of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is when Teledad started getting big. Kay used to love sticking to the current meta and playing any deck that was big and popular. He used to run a lot of Gladiator Beasts, Six Samurais, basically top decks for those who may not play the game. And me, I would like to make my own deck. I would like to find cards that work together and put them together. And the deck that I ended up running was this really kind of weird light deck. But the thing behind this deck was every single card that I had put in that deck had a story behind it. And not like, oh, I made a story, but in terms of, there was a funny story behind how I've gotten said card or how I managed to win said card in a duel or trade or whatever. And so the deck meant a lot to me. And it goes without saying that this was my main deck. And for those that are wondering, yes, me and Mono were together around this time. She used to come down and duel with me too. Our main way of getting there was we would drive down there, you know, pay the meter or whatever, and then hang out for a few hours and duel. And it goes without saying that at these locals, there tended to be some tournaments and etc. The prizes were really, really meager. So it kind of goes without saying that everyone that participated at these tournaments purely participated for the fun of it and just for the competition, but not for the sake of actually winning the prize. Like, it literally didn't mean anything. Or so I thought. Now, before I forget, there's one more detail that I need to mention before we can actually get to the whole thing of karma. Many people who like to go to locals tend to carry their cards on them, be it whether they're going to trade or whatever, but one of the most common ways of carrying your cards was usually in a book bag. Kind of self-explanatory, but my book bag was a very unique book bag. It was a black leather book bag that was, it didn't look like your average book bag, but it didn't look anything out of, fancy either. So with the settings out of the way, let's get to the actual story. There was a tournament that took place one day, and me and Kay had knocked everyone out of the tournament. We were just smoking everybody out, and now it just came down to me and him. The prize for this tournament, and just keep this in mind, the prize for this tournament was basically like a school kit. Like, it was just some like sharpeners and other bullshit that you would use for like a student in school, like if you were like a 6th grader or some shit, right? And keep in mind, me and Kay around this time, like I said, we were at the ages of me being 24 and him being 28. There's a reason why I'm stressing this age. So now me and Kay are at the finals and we're doing best 2 out of 3. I won a round, he won a round, and now we're on the 3rd and final round, and we're both neck and neck. We're both pretty much hanging on by the skin of our teeth. Like, any wrong move would mean that we lose and we're done. And everyone at the library is watching. So he goes in for the final attack and boom, I land a counter attack and win. Everybody's going, oh, and I'm like, eh. And at the moment that he was about to beat me, quote unquote, he decides to make the smart talk like, oh, is that it? There's nothing you can do? Okay, well, boom, game over. And then I flip my card, my counterattack, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, it is game over. So I get the school kit shit, whatever it is, and I hand it off to one of the kids that were there. Because like I said, I just don't care about the prize. So me and Mono are getting ready to leave. We're getting ready to go home, and he's like, yo, good game, this and that. Give me a handshake. I'm like, okay, cool, I shake his hand, you know? So now I'm thinking, okay, well, at least he's not being sore about it, especially with the snarky comment that he made, but whatever, it's cool. So me and her head home, and we drive off. And for some odd reason, I don't know what possessed me, but for that one night, I decided to leave my book bag in the car. And I was just like, you know, whatever. So I leave my book bag in the car with all my cards and everything, including all my decks, including my main deck. And I go to find a spot to sleep. The next morning, I get up, I go over to Mano's place, you know, I get ready, and I go to my job that I had. It was a small part-time job at Dunkin' Donuts. By the way, Aleem, if you're listening to this, you fucking rock. You were one of the best managers I've ever had. But anyway, I get ready, I go to work, and I think a few hours later, I think it was around noon, I get a phone call from Mono telling me that her car was broken into. I'm like, what, are you for real? So my manager, Aleem, was like, hey, Epsy, you could take off. Go make sure everything's okay, okay? And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks, man. I owe you. So I get down there and I check, and it goes without saying that the first thing I check on is Mono okay? And she was like, yeah, I'm fine. I was actually in the house when the car was broken into. I come out to check it, and boom, passenger side window is broken into. And so I'm like, okay. So I go and check to see what's missing, because people don't usually break into a car unless they want something. I check, there's jewelry there, not missing. Money in there, not missing. And not coins, I'm talking about actual, I think there was like around $40, $50 in the car, like in the little coin receptacle thing, not taken. There were games, DS games, etc. in the car, not taken. And I'm like, was this a troll? Somebody just break? I'm looking, and lo and behold, I can't find my book bag. What? My book bag is the only thing that goes missing? Now, yes, I am at this point really pissed, because it's like, I don't know why I decided to leave my book bag in the car. I should have just taken it with me, but you know what? Whatever happened. So later that day, I'm just like, you know, I need to just take a breather. Let me just go down to the locals, just hang with people. I may not have cards, but I can still hang. I mean, I know how to play the game, and if somebody wants to loan me a deck, I can do it with that. I have the skill to be able to do that. Now, me and Mono finally get to the library. We don't take the car because the window's busted into, and we just walk. And it's not that far of a walk anyway. I think it was like maybe a 10-minute walk, not that far. But we walk down, and we get there, and we're hanging out. And for some odd reason, Kay's not there for the day. Well, he's not there when we get there, when he's usually one of the first people there. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. So people are dueling, I'm borrowing a person's deck, and I'm dueling, still busting ass, you know. You gotta do what you gotta do. Let people know that you're still king even without your cards. And I've let people know, hey, look, my Mono's car was broken into, my decks are missing, I don't have cards on me. Cool. Now Kay comes in, right? And for some odd reason, his book bag is like 3 times bigger than its normal size. And all I hear are all these metal clanking noises as he's walking around. And just to give a heads up as to what metal clinking could be, when in Yu-Gi-Oh, when they sell cards, they tend to sell them in these things called tins. They're these metal containers that usually have a pack of cards or whatever. But people tend to use these tins to store cards. All my cards were stored in tins. So he comes in, he's like I said, his book bag's huge, and I'm like, hey Kate, what's up? He's like, oh hey, he's all shook up, he's all, you know, like twitchy about stuff. And I'm like, you all right? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I was up all night, this and that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, what's going on with your book bag? Did it gain weight? And he's like, oh no, I was just rearranging my cards and, you know, this and that. I was like, okay, cool. You got new cards? He's like, yeah. And I was like, hey, can I check out your cards? Now, here's another funny fact. With my cards, I had them all organized in a certain way. I had all my spell cards in one tin or a few tins, all my traps in a few tins, all my monsters in a few tins. And then I even had the monsters separated from, I know I'm a nerd, I know, shut up, don't judge me. But I had all my monster cards, normal and effect monsters, separated in their own tins. So I'm like, hey, can I see your card? Let me see what else you got. And he's like, oh no, you know, I had to sit down all night. I was organizing them all, you know, I got no spells of this. And I was like, huh, that's really odd, you know, you suddenly do this now? But I didn't say this to him, I was just saying this in my head, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together just yet. So now he's like, so, where's your deck? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I see you're not playing with your, like, where's your deck? And I'm like, oh, well, you know, somebody broke into Mama's car and stole him or whatever. And it's whatever, you know, life happens. He's like, oh man, that sucks. And he's got this weird smirk on his face. So he's going around, he's dueling, he's busting people's heads in. And yes, it goes without saying that he's busting my head in too, because I don't have my deck, you know, my pride and joy to kind of beat his ass with. So now, one of the kids there were like, yo, I looked in some of those tins of his, and a lot of those cards look like yours. And I'm like, are you serious? And they're like, yeah. And so what some of them did was they took a lot of those cards without him knowing and showed them to me. Now, I'm not gonna go and try to steal them back. I'm not about that, you know. You don't fight fire with fire. You don't get away with that. So I'm like, okay. Now, after confirming it, yes, he's stolen my cards. And guess what? All the decks that I have missing are decks that he suddenly has. So it goes without saying he stole my cards. So about a week and a half passes, right? And my buddies decide to chip in. And for all you guys who are listening, if you know who you are, thanks. I mean, that means a lot to me that you guys actually chipped in. But they decided to chip in. We went down to the city. We bought all these cards and tried to help me get my collection back. And along the way, they were able to help me replicate my deck card for card. So now a big day happens and another tournament comes up. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm ready. Let's go beat his ass in a duel. So now we come back, we go into this tournament, and me and Kay wipe everybody out. And he's got this big smirk on my face because I made sure he never saw that I had this deck. So we go and we duel, and I beat his ass. I flawlessly beat his ass. And he's like, well, where'd you get these cards? How'd you get your deck? I thought you said it was missing. And I'm like, well, you know, I managed to this night, you know, things happen. And he's pissed. He's pissed now because it's like, I know in his head he must be saying, yo, I took this guy's cards and he still comes back and gets the card. How the hell? And literally at the end of that tournament, I saw him shuffling through his book bag like crazy. So I'm like, whoa, okay. Now I definitely know you stole my cards. I definitely know. But I decided not to call him out just yet because it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And yes, I'll have to admit, Kay was like 3 times my size. If I had to, I'll whoop his ass. But, you know, don't bite off more than you can chew. I don't feel like going to the hospital, especially with me being on the streets. I'm not really up for that. And I'm not big on fighting people if I, you know, over senseless stuff. It's just cards. They steal them, whatever. So now... Finally, I think 3 days after that tournament, I'm dueling, I'm hanging with people in another room, and he pops in out of nowhere, Yo, I heard you said that I was stealing your cards. You want to fight? Let's go outside. And I'm like, damn, bro, I knew for like weeks, but I didn't feel like saying shit because it wasn't worth it. And then everybody's looking at him, he's like, yo, come fight me then if you're saying I stole your cards. I'm like, dude, you're like that piece of shit in the toilet bowl that just doesn't flush. Go away. Now the entire room busts out laughing. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying not to laugh, but he's mad. I mean, I see the sweat coming down his face. He's mad. So he runs off and he just doesn't talk to me anymore. And I think that was the last time me and him actually talked. But I'm sorry if this story trailed on. But at the end of the day, karma is huge. Like I said, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, he may have thought that by stealing my cards, he could end up beating me and said, you know, being the best in the library. But that's not how things work. If somebody's better than you, they're just going to be better than you. I didn't even need those cards. Yeah, he beat my ass without that specific deck. But even though I didn't have my actual deck with me, I had buddies that were willing to back me up and help me build the whole deck back and beat his ass. And to me, I felt like that was way more worth it than actually going down and fighting him and potentially losing or some shit, or losing my cards or getting kicked out of the library, whatever nonsense that could happen. It wasn't even all that worth it. But beating him like I did made my day. And it's still some of the things that I think about whenever I think about that saying, everything happens for a reason. Okay? If you're listening, fuck you. You suck. You'll never beat me in a fucking duel, and you're shit, boy. You'll never be able to get me, alright? But that's all I have to say for this. I have another story coming out. It's about my special powers. Stay tuned. I think you'll really, really, really enjoy that one. But as for my like goal, let's go for 15 likes. 1 like equals 1 school kit. Let's get 15 school kits so we can give him the K and like kind of rub it in his face, since that's what he broke into the car for, just for that. It's real sad shit, but it's whatever. But if anything, Be safe, guys. Have fun and dive into match change. Catch you guys later.